So you're interested in becoming a barber. My advice would be for you to master this haircut first. You don't need to jump into the most advanced haircut in the book. Think about your very first time ever riding a dirt bike and you are gonna go and try to attempt a double backflip like your Travis was trying. Or maybe you've never swung a golf club and you're gonna try to enter a US Open qualifier. You're gonna get cooked, right? Thankfully, when I started cutting hair back in 2003, one, the clients weren't that demanding, but I mastered the basics first. And in this haircut, that's what we're gonna talk about. A number 2 on the back and sides, scissors on top. This will teach you how to blend, how to use clipper over comb, how to control your clipper, how to section, and all of these skills are going to help you as you go more advanced. And throughout this haircut, I actually put the more advanced parts at the end, even though they didn't happen in this order, so that we can build a bit of a foundation. I have an excellent client here to demonstrate this. So the very first thing we are going to do is we're gonna take our clipper, we're gonna put a number 3 on here. You have your lever here. Open leaves the hair longer, closed cuts it closer. So we're gonna close the lever and we're gonna work off the back and sides of the head, just kind of scooping out as we go. There's nothing really that complicated here, but one thing I see a lot of beginners doing is they leave the head a little more than they should. They don't realize that they could rest the clipper on the head, using that as another way to stay anchored and build accuracy and build control. So that's all you need to do here. Just flick up and out as you reach the top. The blend does not have to happen. It does not have to be perfect. And honestly, I think most of you guys can do this if you can manage to keep the clipper flat on the head. So the next step honestly couldn't be more simple, but a lot of you guys have overcomplicated this. So I'm going to explain this to you. And I also have a full video on this technique, but we're going to use clipper over comb. And you just want to have some kind of comb that allows you to pick up a good amount of hair. And I actually do favor those Johnny B combs. I think they're great, and our clipper. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the clipper in the closed position, because you need to learn how to do this properly. I see people doing this with guards on the top of their clipper. I don't think that's a smart way to learn, because that's going to make you have to guess how much hair is actually being cut. The hair that sticks out of the comb, that should be what's getting cut. And in order for you to actually do that, we wanna put this clipper in the closed position so that we can build accuracy. All right, so how do I hold my comb? How do I hold my clipper? First thing we wanna do is we do not wanna hold our comb like this. Look at this. I have no range of motion like this, right? So I'll grip my comb kind of like this, and now I can actually turn this comb like 180 degrees without any issue. We're gonna wanna do that because we're gonna have to lift, scoop, and then we're gonna cut. The second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna hold our clipper in the pencil grip. So just like I was holding a pencil and trying to write something, now I have these two. So before you even attempt this technique, you can kind of just do this in the air, and you can kind of bring the clipper to the comb. And one thing too, don't bang the comb. This is gently place it alongside of the comb, and we're gonna cut across. Now, the other thing that I'm doing is I kind of keep the clipper slightly diagonal as I do this, just so it doesn't get caught in one of the teeth and cause my clipper to get stuck or hung up. So slightly diagonal, and the only hair that really matters is the stuff that sticks out of the bottom. One of the reasons why I don't like seeing people who are kind of amateurs at this, they like to use like maybe like a number 1 guard or a number 2 guard. Fine, if you're learning, maybe you can try that at first, but that doesn't make any sense, because now you have some guesswork here. You're guessing how much is actually being cut rather than being able to visually see exactly what's being cut. All I'm doing is I'm scooping this hair out on the side of the head, and I'm gonna begin cutting, and I'm gonna begin lifting. And as you see, I'm actually tipping the comb inward as we crest over the top of the head based on what I need to take off. Now, the best barber tool you actually have is your eyes. Even though the 360 Jeezys that I'm using in this particular video are my personal favorite clipper right now, because it's extremely strong. It can power through just about anything. But at the end of the day, it's my eyes that need to train me where I need to go. So all I'm trying to do is build a rough shape, use your mirror, and make sure you do it. All right, I did skip the taper, and we are gonna get into that a little bit later in the video as it does get a little more advanced. However, quick recap. All we did was a number 3 on the back and sides, and we used our clipper over comb technique to make a marginally rough blend into the top. Now, I left some of that hair at the very bottom long. I didn't really work too hard at that. So I'm gonna put the number 2 on, and I'm gonna go around the back and sides of the head, staying lower than where I went with that number 3. And a little side piece of advice for those of you guys who are trying to learn some of this stuff, it is honestly really smart to buy a couple mannequins. You can actually learn how to do clipper over comb on the mannequins. This was actually one from one of my classes, and it's been living in the back of my truck for some time, but just got it out here for an example. But as you can see, I'm keeping the clipper flat against the head, and I'm using that number 2 underneath. And that gave me just that little bit of leeway I would need to work with the parietal ridge area, where if I put the comb on the side of the head, right where it leaves the hair, that's actually considered the parietal ridge. So all I'm trying to do now is stay a little bit lower than that and get that hair down. We're gonna cut the top with scissors. We're actually gonna create a mohawk guideline, which means that I'm gonna section a small section right through the middle, and I'm gonna cut a mohawk guideline. Now what that is, that's considered a stationary guideline. I'm going to be able to refer back to this as I cut the entirety of the hair. Now his is a little more basic because he's gonna wear the front spiked up and it's not super long. Some of these kids, they wanna wear these fluffy tops, and there's a little bit of a difference that we would address if we were doing that. But after I've cut my stationary guideline, I'm gonna stand off to the side and I'm gonna pick up sections and I'm gonna cut just off of my guideline. So it's gonna look like this. Boom, cut, boom, cut, boom, cut. You can actually do this with clippers or you can do this with scissors. I do not wanna make a mess on my desk, but in the same way that we use our clippers, in the same way that we use our scissors, we can use our clippers. So if I hold my comb like this, I can pick this up, cut, pick this up, cut. And the boost is kind of nice with that because the on-off switch is on the side, so it's actually kind of easy to turn it on and off. Having smaller or more compact clipper would make that a little bit easier. Mohawk in the middle. Let's stay here as I pick up sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like this. Go off the side of it this way. Go off the side of it this way. Little by little, all of this hair is going to be pretty even, but we've cut standing behind him, right? So we're going to cross-check vertically. So that was horizontal, and the cross-check is going to be vertical. So I'm going to pick up some vertical sections here, and I'm going to try to find some lengths that are uneven. Maybe I see them, maybe I don't. But the thing about it is, if you don't do this at the end of your haircut, when you dry it, if you push it all forward, you're going to see little lines across the top of the head. So in order to avoid that, we want to make sure that we cross-check that, and feel free to cut anything that is not even or, you know, just doesn't look right. So now we've built really passable connection from the sides into the top. And we've done this in a very basic way. Now, I actually have another video where I just really dive into cutting the top, but I think that this is pretty basic. This has gotten me by since 2003 on 99% of clients. This is exactly what I will do. Now, the only difference would be if you wanted to wear his bangs long, which we'll cover that in another video. This is just basic stuff. So think of clipper over comb as kind of like your broad paintbrush, helps you get the shape, helps you get it pretty close. But as we get towards the end of the haircut, we want to be more detailed, and shear over comb is the proper way that we're going to do that. So as we hold our shears, I see a lot of barbers holding their shears the wrong way still. I don't know why, but your ring finger actually goes inside the loop, and your top 4 fingers are going to rest just like that. And your thumb, when you're cutting, is going to be in here. So all we're going to do here when we move our shears, all we're moving is our thumb. We're not trying to move. We don't want to move them like this so they're chomping. We want to move only the thumb, and the rest of your hand stays fairly still. The next step to this is we're going to actually bring our comb up, and we're going to use the exact same motions. We're going to roll the comb as we're getting really specific, and we're going to roll and reset. So resets when I'm combing the hair back down. I'm trying to see them spots that I'm trying to get into, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut, roll, reset. Again, I'm just using my eyes to know where to go. This is not a perfect science. You have to look at the curl, you have to look at how it's laying, and you have to use your mirror, and little by little, you can chip away at this. A lower risk way to do the exact same thing, honestly, would be using some texturizing shears. And if you use some texturizing shears, you're going to be able to kind of get the motions down. Me personally, I stay away from texturizing shears like most of the time. I'd say 90% of my haircut, I don't really use it unless I'm trying to do something a little more advanced. But for learning purposes, it's great. And also for learning purposes, you can learn both shear over comb and clipper over comb on the exact same mannequin. You could do quite a few cuts on a mannequin where you could start to build some repetition so that when you do get to the shop, you're not doing this on a live client yet. That would be a really smart way to start building some of this. Once I've completed the shear over comb work, I'm gonna look into the mirror and I'm gonna look at the silhouette and I'm gonna make sure everything is laying the way I want it to. All the time when you're done with the haircut, you should be looking in the mirror and looking to see if there's anything you could fix. Now, when I look at the silhouette, sometimes one of the sides are gonna be sticking out more than the other. Maybe a curl's not laying down right in the crown. And that's when I like to actually go back in with my clipper over comb, and it just allows me to get really accurate and make small adjustments. Like if you look at this client, he has a lot of weird growth patterns in his crown. He's got like a triple helix of a colic in there. But my goal is to stop it from sticking up, stop it from looking funny and sticking out, and make sure that it lays good. And that's where this entire 101 basics comes in. When you're comfortable enough to do this, you can really handle just about anything that walks through the door, except for maybe fading yet, but actually fading can be pretty easy too if you go about it the right way. So you guys can see that I tapered his neck and I tapered his sideburns. So let's rewind the cut, and quickly we're going to talk on some of the more advanced techniques now within this haircut. And this is really what I think separates the cosmetologists from the barbers, is the barbers are more likely to taper your cut down further than you might even ask for when you sit down and say, I want a number 2 on the back and sides. We know that we don't want to leave you with a mattress that's going to grow back and get thicker, have you looking like Elvis with the mutton chops. We want the neck to grow back nicely. And these are things that we address as barbers because we're more comfortable at taking the hair to lower lengths, knowing that we can blend it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open my clipper all the way with the lever. I'm going to tip it out, and I'm just going to use the tips of the teeth to start flicking away at it. This is a great way for you to get started if you're new to this, and you can actually create a pretty nice blend just by doing this. Now to take it a step further, I'm going to angle the clipper down so that I'm getting the blade completely flat, and then I can begin closing it, staying a couple teeth lower. I'm just using this as an example than I was before. But as you guys can see, I used no guards and I snapped out that taper instantly. So now watch again on the other side. Again, using the teeth, clippers in the open position, flicking up and out, and you might need to use a guard, and a lot of times you won't. Most of the time, this doesn't even take me 30 seconds to a minute to taper out somebody's sideburns in like a basic way. Obviously, we're doing a higher taper fade. It might be a little more complicated, but for just a basic sideburn, this looks pretty darn good. We can just line this up and we can move on. Now, where it does get a little more complicated is in the back. But as you guys can see, I'm going to use the electric shaver. I love using the Uno 2.0. This thing has a lot of miles on it, as you can see. But obviously, to get into hard to reach spots is one thing. Like I can get underneath the mustache here and it's very gentle. But using this on an angle, using just the corners, just tapping down, this is an easy to blend with tool. So if you're getting started with blending, you might not want to jump to a double foil. You might want to use a single foil just to make it easier. Okay, let's jump to the back, which obviously is a bigger section and it's going to require some guidelines. We're going to put the taper in the open position and we're going to make our first guideline. As you guys can see, I'm kind of just going straight across. A lot of times you guys have seen me use like a rainbow shape. It really just depends on how much hair the client has. So in this case, I just put it on open, put my guideline in, and little by little, I'm going to step the lever down and get rid of the rest of the hair, always staying a step lower than I was before. So if I'm all the way open, click it once, stay a little bit lower. Click it twice, stay a little bit lower. Click it 3 times, stay a little bit lower. And I'm going to keep doing that until I wipe off the bottom of the hair. For the next step, we're going to put a half guard on, and I'm going to open it 2 clicks. That's 1, 2. Next, I'm going to start actually using only one corner of the blade or the other, or I'm going to try to keep it on a bit of an angle, but I'm also keeping that nice wrist flowing, floating action, and that's going to start to knock out the majority of this line. So quick recap, we did a 3 on the back and sides to start with. We followed up with a number 2, which means that we could take a 1.5 in that area, and we know that we're not going to make an issue. So we're going to grab the 1.5 and we're going to try to clean that up. If the 1.5 does not get this out, then we're going to jump to the number 1 and we've completed all our guards. And of course, feel free to jump back a step. If you see something's kind of getting off, you either got 2 options. You either jump back a step or you jump forward a step. If you guys have seen my fading scales, then you kind of know exactly where you're at. A lot of times students will ask me at the end of a haircut, hey Ed, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And I'll just say, look at your fading scale. It's either the step below or it's the step above. So after that, we're just gonna line him out and it's just pretty simple. If you use an electric shaver to follow up behind this line, that would be very basic, but that would still look great. And if you want to use a razor, if you are a barber and you're able to use a razor, great. Use a razor and knock out the rest of that line. In the very back of the taper, the very bottom of the taper, I might use the electric shaver just a little bit, just to further get that all the way down to the skin and give that client a little bit more time with the grow back. But for the most part, that's that. And we're just gonna follow up with the razor on the back and sides. Everywhere we went with the trimmer, we're gonna go with the razor, and he's gonna wind up with a haircut that looks really good. and grows back really nice. So that's that. That's the tapered aspect of the haircut. I hope the way that I structure this, I hope that you guys liked it. I hope that you guys understand what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to tell you guys, really, you don't need to jump into the most advanced stuff right away. You can start by easing your way into it. For instance, if you didn't want to bald his taper all the way out, you could have just did it with a number 1 or maybe a half guard or even just a 1.5, just doing something to start getting yourself comfortable and start building some confidence down here. You don't have to do a complete blowout taper right off the rip. But I just showed you some easy steps that I use to make it a little bit easier for me, and all of the machines and all the tools that you guys see me use in this video that make my life a little bit easier, you guys can find them down below. And of course, anything from Stylecraft, you guys can use the code Eddie and you can save 10%. We do hope you appreciate the content here at the YBA. We're gonna push through, we're gonna put a whole bunch of content up, so subscribe if you're not already. We have over 1,000 videos to help you learn, and I'll catch you guys in one of those next videos. Peace.